introduction and you walk up to somebody and they say they're a financial advisor and you're like, oh man, I gotta get out of here. But what if they said, I'm a financial advisor and we specialize in working with business owners right here in this county, and one of the things we've been helping them with is to identify different tax credits they're not taking advantage of. Now all of a sudden, do you become more repelling or less repelling if you're a financial advisor? You become more attractive, like, oh. The key thing in an introduction statement is who you work with, not what you do. And we think it's the what. We think it's got to be, well, we do all these things and we do that, but it's who you work with that is attractive, and it's also memorable. It's not the rest of it. And we've done a lot of research on this to find out. So for instance, we've got a financial, and I'll use another one of these financial advisor examples, financial advisor that's a little bit south of here, and he says, and when he's asked, I'm a financial advisor at XYZ company who specialized in working with corporate executives getting ready to retire from Abbott Labs. And so I will often say to people, well, what was memorable about that statement? Well, there's only one thing that's memorable about that statement, because it's blah, 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 Abbott Labs. Oh, you work with people at Abbott. It's who that's way more important than the what we do. So it's you and who you work with that are the two key parts. So the third absolute we'll talk about are referrals. Now, referrals in the greatest sense come without you ever asking for them, in the greatest sense, because you've got these advocates who are out there talking about you. But let's say there are strategic alliances, like people that are in this room today. So you meet somebody and you go, oh, I know somebody that could work with you, or let me refer you to somebody, or let me connect you with someone else. And so this process, we call it strategic alliances. And a lot of you have lots of strategic alliances in this community and other communities. And the key is that there's always a lot of high hopes for strategic alliances. Oh, I met with this person for lunch and they said that we're going to refer business back and forth. It's going to be so great. And then nothing happens. Or you give them referrals and they don't give you any back. And you're like, what gives? Well, we've done some research on this and found that there's three main things that have to be in place in order for that strategic alliance relationship to work. The first one is the person you're talking with has to actually be growing their business. Because if they're growing their business, they're talking to new people on a regular basis. Not a serial networker, but somebody who's actually growing their business. And so that's one of the questions that we found is an absolute key to ask somebody as you're talking about putting a strategic alliance relationship together. The second question is, where do you get your new business from? Because in a lot of cases, it depends on what the market is and what you're doing. They might be getting a lot of their new business from your competitors, which means they can't give it back to you. And we find this all the time. And I bet you see it in construction and things like that, where you're talking to somebody and they're like, oh yeah, we'll give you referrals, but they're getting all of their referrals from other architects or whatever it might be. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is, and it's very critical, when you're meeting with that person, it depends what industry you're in, but a strategic alliance relationship could be worth anywhere from $1 million to $100 million in a year. And if you're thinking about going and having lunch with somebody that could potentially give you $100 million in business, would you do a little bit of research before you went to that lunch? Would you maybe look them up on LinkedIn? Would you maybe ask a few people in the community? Would you figure out something? And the reason that we want to figure out something about that person is so that our messaging can be very pointed. Because if we walk into that meeting and this happens, it's almost always a big success. You sit down with that person, you tell them about what you do, you tell them about who you work with, you know that they also work with those same kinds of people, and they say this, oh, I've got like 3 people that need to see you. I've got somebody you need to meet. That's the litmus test. If they do not say that in the very first meeting that you have, it's highly unlikely to be successful.